Welcome to the show, everybody. We got a great show for you. Happy Thursday to everybody out there watching. Yesterday, we had the news. The FBI raiding Fulton County, Georgia, getting their ballots, now reportedly getting their hard drives to some of these voting machines. It's going to be very interesting to see what comes of this. Hopefully, fingers crossed, this is the beginning of accountability when it comes to the 2020 election. But more importantly, Tulsi Gabbard was there. Tulsi Gabbard there during an FBI raid. By the accounts that I trust, the ones that are in the know, Tulsi Gabbard is rightly needs to be praised here for her role in all of this. We've been waiting for her to come out with reports about what happened in 2020. So you have to assume that what happened yesterday at Fulton County was a direct result of her efforts. And if that is the case, Tulsi Gabbard is a patriot. We're going to talk about this, as well as the new footage of Alex Preddy, days before he was killed, kicking the tail light out of an ICE vehicle. And there's that hilarious video of Elizabeth Warren basically eulogizing him on the Senate floor with the now new footage showing what a left-wing, subversive, communist, radical revolutionary he really was, or at least that's my opinion if you can't tell. The show starts right now.
The Paul Harrell Program.
All right, folks, as always, we appreciate you watching, and we would encourage you to like, share, and subscribe wherever you are watching, whether it's Rumble, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Facebook, or whether it's Hometown TV, right out of the air digitally in North Central Arkansas, and also on X. Yes, we would very much appreciate it. My co-host today is Eric Haynes is back with us. Eric, sir.
Great to be part of the conversation.
I'm just tempted to say Rob because Rob.
Sure.
Yeah, so you have to forgive me for blanking out. That's very rude. Very rude of me indeed.
No offense taken.
So yesterday was very interesting. I didn't do a show yesterday because I was under the weather. We got all this ice, all this snow, and all these sub-freezing temperatures, and I've been out, playing with the kid, trying to do sledding, trying to make a snowman, although the snow just wasn't good enough for a snowman this time. And I got sick, so...
it was good for sledding, though.
Yeah.
There was a lot of good sledding going on.
Well, if you've got the sled that has the plastic, those are better than what we had. Because my sled is more like actually has I don't know, what do you call that type of sled? We don't have names for sleds. Specific sleds in the South because we never use them. But it's got the actual metal.
Right.
Is it a toboggan? That's not it. I don't know. I have no idea. Somebody out there from the North tell me where I'm wrong.
Well, everything is what it is by comparison to something else. So if your epitome in this part of the comparison is Clark W. Griswold from Christmas Vacation and the spray lubricant to just the two heavy metal bars that you're talking about.
That's what it's. Yeah, the heavy. My sled has heavy metal bars on it, and with 8 inches of snow, it just kind of, sank in. So, anyway, are you the one working on that non-nutritive cereal varnish? That's got to be one of my favorite lines. All right, let's get right to it. So, the 2020 election, Kanekoa the Great posting this about the raid yesterday, about how FBI executed the search warrant on Fulton County Election Center, seizing the contentious 2020 election ballots. So for 6 years, he says, the public has still not been allowed to inspect 145,000 ballots that 6 sworn affidavits say were counterfeit. Here's a few quotes from Susan Voiles, a 20-year election official, who said that the ballots were pristine and the difference in texture on the paper with a different feel and no markings, and approximately 98% of those ballots went for Joe Biden. Then you had a Georgia Democrat observer in an affidavit. Again, affidavits are sworn to under penalty of perjury. Quote, hundreds of ballots with no folds or creases, perfect black bubbles, all for Biden. Then another Georgia Democrat, all had perfect black bubbles and were all Biden. I heard Biden over 500 times in a row. And so here's an excerpt. Here's some B-roll footage, I guess, of what exactly was going down yesterday. You see the FBI there. Not only was the FBI there, Eric, but Tulsi Gabbard was there.
There she is.
In a very much a where in the world is Carmen Sandiego type photo, in my opinion. I mean, like just slinking around the corner there. The director of national intelligence at an FBI raid in Fulton County Election Center. You got to wonder, what does Tulsi Gabbard know about what really went on when all of us went to bed at 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. with Trump up 300,000, 100,000 in all these different swing states? They all stopped counting their ballots at the same time. And Fulton County, Georgia, no one in their right minds believes that the red state of Georgia in 2020 voted for Joe Biden. It was preposterous. It was a preposterous idea then, and it's a preposterous idea today. Absolutely.
I hope she finds out very soon, and I hope she lets the public know very soon. That's because, like I've said before, and this was totally my fault and my big miss. I always thought of the 2020 election rigging as being something of a more media-driven rigging and censorship. I've said that before. I really missed the mark on what it seems now is pretty clear that there was a lot of tampering with a lot of votes. And most of us didn't think that 80 million people voted for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
We just
more votes than Barack Obama.
We saw the graphs of the number of votes for Biden totally surpassing the number of votes for Obama, and just thought that doesn't make any sense at all. But this could get really, really hairy.
The guy who ran his campaign from a basement didn't get 80 million votes, right? Eric Daugherty, again, the fact that Tulsi Gabbard was there obviously made the rounds with the mainstream or with the conservative media, but it also drove the mainstream media nuts, as we'll see here in just a moment. This was Brett Baer's report.
During a search of the Fulton County, Georgia election office. That search is said to be related to the 2020 election. Correspondent David Spunt has details tonight. Good evening, David.
Brett, good evening. FBI agents are still on site at the records warehouse for the Fulton County, Georgia Board of Elections. The matter is sealed before a court, meaning details are limited, but we can report this is related to the 2020 presidential election. Sources tell Fox News that agents retrieved documents, phones, and computers after a judge signed a warrant. President Trump has long made Georgia, and specifically Fulton County, a target of his complaints relating to the 2020 election. Shortly after that election, Trump spoke to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, and said he needed 11,780 votes to win the state. At the time, Raffensperger said he felt pressure from Trump and denied any widespread election fraud. He continues to deny it to this day. Now, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis brought state criminal charges against then former President Trump and others in 2023 for conspiracy to overturn the election. But her prosecution, Brett, was eventually derailed completely after it was revealed she had an intimate relationship with the top prosecutor on her team, and it could have tainted the case. Late last year, a judge dismissed.
It's really funny. It's just comical to hear the chain of events and everything they were doing to try to stop them from. It's all about narrative. It really
totally
is. It's all about narrative, and they wanted the mainstream media to run with this and punish President Trump. But interesting enough, there are plenty of people taking victory laps. One of them is Ed Martin, who is an attorney now at the DOJ. This morning at 6:24 a.m., the day after the FBI raids Fulton County Election Center, get their ballots, get their voting machines, he posts a photo of himself with Sidney Powell, who at great personal risk, and it wasn't risk, at great personal cost to her and her legal reputation, was one of the only voices in November of 2020 saying, this was stolen, we have to look into the voting machines. Ed Martin, who is now at the DOJ, basically, this is the equivalent of a middle finger to all of the haters.
Oh, yeah, they're smiling like the Joker now.
Mm-hmm. And so all of the signs are there. Does this mean we get actual accountability? I don't know. And I still think you have to look at the Venezuela connection here as well, okay? So now what we can say now is, based on what I have, and again, Emerald Robinson was the first person, I believe she was the one that broke the story about the Venezuela connection and the software and everything that really happened, and according to Dr. Andrew Paquette, since like '04, when some of this software started making its way into American voting machines. And there's a lot of details here, but Patrick Byrne is involved, admitted intel agent in the Obama administration. And, he is now coming out and saying that they have acquired in the past, so not with what happened yesterday yet, but he has acquired in the past, several hard drives from voting machines across the country. And in those hard drives, there is a record of things being added and taken away, software components being added or taken away. He described it on Emerald Robinson's show as something like a toolbox, right? And apparently, if any one thing is added or one tool is taken away, it legally decertifies the election. And yet in these hard drives, allegedly, there is evidence that hundreds, if not thousands, of additions and subtractions have been made. And he was speculating that there's some government scientists, computer scientists, this morning finding the same results in these hard drives from Fulton County. And if that's the case, again, great, but we've got to see accountability, and we're still waiting on Tulsi Gabbard's report.
Yeah. And to your credit, to the credit of the show and to the content and some of your guests too, you've helped educate people like me who back then had no idea what was going on in relation to that. I heard the name Dominion Software and that there might be some questions related to what Dominion actually is back then, but I was completely clueless to what could be happening in regards to coding and manipulation. And I'm thankful that I've been so much more educated now based on some of the content that you've looked at, and you've gone down that road. Yeah. And a lot of people just choose to put their head in the sand and ignore it. And I feel personally guilty because I've been one of those types that have just said, I can't let my mind get wrapped around the fact that elections could be this easily manipulated with zeros and ones in software code. It is all these epic and funny comedy videos, movies about election tampering in regards to just votes. I think of the Chris Farley movie with he and his brother. Like, that's the kind of goofy, funny stuff that we think about with stealing votes. But no, this is really, really massive software related problems.
Well, and it's and like I'm saying,
sorry, I didn't mean to go.
Well, no, I mean you're exactly right, and I guess what I would say is, the mainstream media, the accounts of the FBI raid are focused on the ballots, and we opened the show with the ballots. We opened the show with the affidavits that we just quoted of people saying these ballots didn't look right. They looked like they were too pristine.
Yeah.
So there's many different ways to skin a cat here.
Sure.
But when you have somebody like Tommy Tuberville, okay, right after we deposed and arrested Maduro, this was posted on January 6th from Real America's Voice. Senator from Alabama, Tommy Tuberville, said this about Venezuela.
I'll say this. There's a handful of congressmen and senators up here, Steve, that if it wasn't for Venezuela, they wouldn't be here because of those Dominion voting machines and all the voting that was ran out of Venezuela. Wow. We all know the deck was stacked in a lot of these states, and more so for President Trump, but it also trickled down to the down ballot with senators and congressmen. So they did a lot of damage. Venezuela did a lot of damage, and I hope we get the real truth out of Maduro, while he's here in jail in New York. He probably will never see the light of day again, but at the end of the day, if he wants to see the light every once in a while, he's going to need to start talking like somebody that knows quite a bit, that we know he knows quite a bit.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's just interesting that, the timeline of events, there's not been any official statement connecting what happened yesterday with what happened, at the beginning of the year with Venezuela, but there is reporting that it's connected, and you have, again, this is a United States senator right there saying that. So, do what you will with those data points, but I think this is a slow reveal of what people on the right, conspiracy theorists, have known for 6 years.
Well, everyone on the other side of the aisle though is just no. We don't care about what are you doing going back to 2020? Who cares? It's over. That's all in the past. And when you hear stuff like that, we're just moving forward. We're not talking about 2020. There's something being covered up.
Yeah, 100%.
I remember too. This is weird. The ballot harvesting issue that came up in 2020, where everyone was because COVID was going on and was so rampant. There were these people that were just walking around in all of these neighborhoods collecting ballots, and I remember how that did not sit well with me at all, and that you could easily have somebody totally manipulating those ballots back then, and then turning in stacks and stacks and boxes of and there was lots of reporting about it then, but I just don't feel like anything really was done about it. A few laws were pushed through trying to get that stopped for 2024, but I didn't hear a lot about it after 2020.
Yeah, in our own state of Arkansas years ago, there's a state representative out of West Memphis that was doing his own ballot harvesting out of West Memphis, Arkansas, and promising people fried chicken and bottles of vodka for their ballots. So
crazy.
You can multiply that on an industrial scale.
Yeah.
I don't know if you need vodka and fried chicken. You probably just need cash from non-governmental organizations that are funded by the government to enact a color revolution, in a broad scale. And I think that's what we're seeing here. Matter of fact, I was watching a video. I subscribe on YouTube to a pop culture, I don't know, I guess you call him a warrior. His name is, the channel is Nerdrotic. And it's a great follow. If you want to know how Hollywood takes our intellectual property and jams it full of woke messaging, like Kathleen Kennedy did to Star Wars or Indiana Jones and all these other, basically destroying these franchises by destroying the masculinity of the characters and everything. It's just he's really good at that, really spot on at that. Well, I was watching him talk about the general downfall of Hollywood the other day, and he mentioned the mayor of Los Angeles, Karen Bass. Of course, she's like a card-carrying communist. But he specifically mentioned how the industry is just tanking. It was a video about how, nobody wants to work in California anymore. They're working in Georgia or New York or New Jersey or even Canada. But he just mentioned as kind of a throwaway that she won her election by getting a ballot dump at 3 a.m. And I thought, because he's not overtly political. Obviously,
right.
He believes the left is insane with their woke messaging, but he's not like, he's just a guy that wants the pop culture to be left alone and, not trying to brainwash people and ruin intellectual properties that meant a lot to all of us when we were growing up, right? That's kind of, and I hope I'm doing him justice. But anyway, I watch most of his stuff. But I just thought it was interesting. And he has a platform that is just not as political, if you will, and yet he throws out, she won because she got a bunch of ballots at 3 a.m. And so I say that to say that this idea of election cheating with Democrats, and I think Republicans have benefited from it too in contentious primaries, is breaking into the mainstream. It's breaking, and it may already have. It just the mainstream media is certainly not going to admit that it has.
Wow. I'm glad you brought up Star Wars, by the way.
Yeah.
Because you couldn't be any more correct as it relates to franchises like that. This past week has been fun having kids at home for the last number of days, and so my 11-year-old son and I, when we had some spare time, we watched Star Wars 1, 2, and 3, which are actually 4, 5, and 6.
Right.
And after Return of the Jedi, my son looked over at me and said, "All right, Dad, what's next?" And I'm like, well, man,
the prequels have aged really well compared to what Kathleen Kennedy did.
Yes. I was like, well, we can go back and we can see young Anakin, but we got to do the Jar Jar Binks thing. We got to do some other really goofy stuff with Hayden Christensen who became Darth Vader. So I didn't say all those things to my 11-year-old, but I was thinking them in my head.
Yeah, you're the one that's got to be tortured, honestly.
Oh, golly.
You're the one.
Because I'm just like eating up every moment of Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, and then here I am looking at my son when he's like, all right, Dad, what's next? I'm like, I don't know, buddy.
It's all downhill from
this
here.
May be it. We may have to move on.
There's some cool lightsaber battles, but, for
yeah,
the most
sure.
part, it's all downhill.
I can show you how Yoda can really use a lightsaber in episode 2.
So how are the Democrats reacting to the news of the FBI raid in Fulton County and really this resurrection of this narrative that 2020 was not the most secure election of all time? Well, interstate senator from Georgia by the name of Josh McLaurin. This was brought to my attention by left-wing crazy Ed Krasenstein. And this is what he says this is what he says. So left-wing crazy Ed Krasenstein says, this is like we're living in Russia. Trump, you sent in the FBI to raid the Georgia ballots or the Georgia election. It's like we're living in Russia. But here's a Democrat state senator from Georgia. He was triggered by the raid. I think that's safe to say.
If they are able to modify the contents of these boxes, when I say they, I mean the Trump administration, then there's really no way of knowing what did happen in 2020. Their full intention is to take...
Yeah, well, let's stop right there. So now that the DOJ, the FBI, now that they've got him, this guy is saying, they're going to manipulate the data. You can't believe it because Trump's going to manipulate the data.
Yeah, you can't let happen what needs to happen. You just got to say before it happens, they're going to manipulate. They're going to manipulate the manipulation.
We have refused to hand over all of this information for years. We have refused to let the Trump administration have it for at least 1 year in his first term. And now that they have it, they're going to manipulate it.
The audacity of that statement, and then for Krasenstein or whatever to make the connection to this feels like Russia. Like, that's all you guys can ever do. Oh, this feels like Nazi Germany, or this feels like Russia, or this feels like... It's like, what other third world country you want to bring up? It's like, come on, man. No way.
Anyway, he keeps going here.
Full intention is to take 700 boxes of ballots away from the 2020 election. The reason I know that is because there are 2 state election board members from Georgia in there, Jan and Sally, who have participated in election denial and conspiracy theories themselves, to be very clear. And Jan was on the phone, and she said in front of me, they should take all 700 boxes away. So that is the clear intention of the people who are trying to grab these ballots to pursue conspiracy theories, is to grab as many ballots as possible. Apparently, those 700 boxes of ballots, they didn't have a warrant that quite covered what they wanted. So what they're having to do now is try to amend the warrant somehow. I've also heard from Fulton officials that there is no protection for chain of custody. There is no assurance that chain of custody is being preserved. That's so important because if they are able to modify the contents of these boxes, when I say they, I mean the Trump administration, then there's really no way of knowing what did happen in 2020.
Jan and Sally know what's fishy about what happened.
They know what's up.
Yeah. I trust Jan and Sally.
I trust Jan and Sally,
I don't trust this doofus.
The ones who have been blowing the whistle the whole time.
Right.
Here is Roger. Okay, so Roger Stone. So ABC News did cover this, and they went to Jonathan Karl. Jonathan Karl reacted by spewing the same lies. We'll get to that here in a minute. But Roger Stone says, I seriously question the mental stability of John Karl. He is deeply mentally ill and in denial. Perhaps he had missed the admission under oath by Fulton County officials only weeks ago that they inadvertently counted 300,000 invalid ballots. So how does Jonathan Karl of ABC News, how is the mainstream media reacting to this news yesterday? Watch.
John, we've also been following that FBI raid today at an election hub in Fulton County, Georgia. What stands out to you from what we know so far?
Well, frankly, Andrew, forgive me for being direct, but this is nuts. This is all relitigating the election in Georgia in 2020, which is the most litigated election in the history of American presidential elections. You remember, just a little bit of background on this. In Georgia, they actually counted the ballots 3 times. They counted them after Election Day. Then they did an entire recount by machine after the election. And then they did a hand recount of some 5 million ballots. It took days and days before they had an official result. As a result of that, the Republican governor, Brian Kemp, said the election was perfectly safe. The Republican Secretary of State said that the election was an accurate one. Trump told him to find 11,780 ballots, precisely the number that he would have needed to win. Apparently, he's still trying to find those ballots after all these years.
So a lot of dishonesty here from Jonathan Karl. It is the typical narrative that you will hear. It's the most litigated election. Of course, that is a lie because there was no judge that actually had the intestinal fortitude to hear the evidence, because there's no judge that wanted to be responsible for putting Trump back in office. Then that's number one. Number two, they did recounts. Well, so you can recount the same fraudulent ballots that had the the conspicuous creases or the perfectly filled in ovals. You can just recount those, which is what they did. So I mean, it's just patently lying to his and obviously he misrepresents what Trump was saying on that call when it comes to finding the ballots. And also, like Brian Kemp, he's a Republican governor. Well, he can be corrupt. There's plenty of Republicans that hate Donald Trump's guts. Oh, yeah. They say that they love him publicly, but they hate his guts privately. I'm thinking of Lindsey Graham right now. So, this idea that, it was a Republican Secretary of State, it was a Republican governor, that doesn't mean anything.
No, doesn't mean anything at all.
So, anyway, I mean, this is how the left is reacting. Do we have one more leftist reaction? I think we do. Oh, yeah. So, David Cate decides to confront the Fulton County Commissioner, Dana Barrett, who is running for Georgia Secretary of State. Okay?
Dana Barrett from Ghostbusters.
Oh, really?
No, that was Sigourney Weaver's character.
Okay. I didn't realize it. Okay. All right. The key master. Here's that conversation. You want to watch somebody squirm. This is mildly entertaining.
Why is it dangerous?
Because you're spreading conspiracy theories.
It's not a conspiracy theory. Do you have $45? I'm not undermining. I'm not saying people are voting there. Ma'am, I'm not saying that people are voting there. I'm not saying people are voting there. I'm saying people are currently registered to vote there. We went around Fulton County the last few weeks and we see that people are currently registered to vote in places like empty lots, homeless shelters that closed 10 years ago. What would you do if you become Secretary of State to address that?
I'm not going to reply to conspiracy theories.
It's not conspiracy. It's a current. You can currently go on the voter rolls, purchase them for $45, and go there with us. We will gladly take you if you want to go to.
I appreciate what you're saying. I'm not going to respond to conspiracy theories.
How is that a conspiracy theory? It's an active voter rolls. If you're going to be running for Secretary of State, you're in charge of maintaining the voter rolls. Don't you care about if people are registered to vote from empty lots?
Thank you for your questions. I appreciate it. I've got to.
Do you think it's a conspiracy theory that people are registered to vote from empty lots, though? Well, I have the ability to go wherever I want to. People are currently registered to vote in empty lots, Commissioner. And if you're going to run for Secretary of State, aren't you going to at least take a look at that? It took me $45 to purchase the voter rolls. You can do that as well for the Fulton County.
It's just nuts, man. I mean, that's a conspiracy theory. I'm going to shut you down. And yet the people know. And this is Secretary of State. It's like, well, we've got a Brad Ratzenberger, and now we've got another one to fill his place. And that the R&D doesn't really even matter if you're compromised. And if you're going to, again, it is the most insane policy ever to be for electronic voting machines as we see the rise in technology and AI and everything else. It's like the most crazy lunatic position you could possibly take, even if there's an older generation that has a lack of imagination. Like, we're talking about how we elect our leaders here. Trusting computers is a terrible, terrible mistake.
Yeah, and I'm not going to respond to conspiracy theories. That just doesn't fly anymore. Too many 2020 and whatever, go back as long as you want. Too many conspiracy theories became absolute truth and fact, and we saw them play out. So if you're running for office, your response to those questions cannot be, I don't respond to conspiracy theories. It just can't. I mean, that doesn't even make sense. Her response there doesn't even make sense. The guy's like, I purchased the voter rolls for $45. You can go do that too. Like, It's really easy. This is not a conspiracy theory. The guy's not theorizing anything. He's saying, look at these people's places where it's empty parking lots. This doesn't make sense. It's just like it would be just like telling Nick Shirley that what he's doing is touting conspiracy theories. He's like, no, I'm standing here outside the Quality Leering Center, and there are no kids in there.
That's right.
So, again, stuff just doesn't fly anymore.
I also wonder, we're going to take a break here, but it is interesting. Why not just lie? Like, it really kind of shows you that the left, we give them too much credit sometimes for having plans when they don't really have plans. It would have been much easier. I mean, because if you're in on the rigging of the elections and you want people registered to vote that aren't really people at a homeless shelter that's been shut down for 10 years, why wouldn't you just say, we're going to take a look at that? Thank you very much for your question. Why wouldn't you just
right, bunt.
Yeah, both are lying.
You know what? That's great. We will definitely look into that.
Yeah, it's over.
It leaves
it
it wide
just shows
open.
you how terrified they are to not just lie about it, because they're already engaged in a grand conspiracy of deception and lies and law breaking.
Yeah.
What's one more lie of, hey, you know what? That's disturbing. We don't need that. I'll look into that. But they don't even say that, which just shows you how panicked they are. Deep down inside.
She was deer in headlights for sure.
We got to take a quick break. We're going to be back here in about a minute and 20 seconds. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
I'm Brian Norris, retired Army First Sergeant, husband to Kelly, father of 3 amazing girls, and a lifelong Arkansan who puts faith, family, and fair elections first. When Independence County demanded real election transparency, I led the charge, petitioning voters and winning at the Arkansas Supreme Court. Now, Little Rock bureaucrats are punishing counties like Searcy for putting voters first. That's not real conservatism. It's big government overreach in disguise. That's why Trump allies like General Michael Flynn, Mike Lindell, Justice Michael Gableman, Colonel Conrad Reynolds, Senator Wendy Rogers, and Senator Mark Fincham back me. Together, we'll secure Arkansas's elections and inspire the nation. As Secretary of State, I'll implement President Trump's executive order, verify citizenship, replace hackable voting computers, and build trust with verifiable paper ballots. I'll cut red tape for businesses, harness our natural gas and lithium boom, and attract tech jobs to grow Arkansas strong. This is our fight, our future. Join us.
Paid for by Norris for Arkansas.
All right, welcome back to the show, ladies and gentlemen. So, in the wake of the FBI raid in Fulton County yesterday, people on X and other places have decided to resurrect old tweets of Donald Trump when he was more, he was a more frequent poster on X or Twitter back then. Back on November 12th of 2020, President Trump posted this, quote, report, Dominion deleted 2.7 million Trump votes nationwide. Data analysis finds 221,000 Pennsylvania votes switched from President Trump to Biden. 941,000 Trump votes deleted. States using Dominion voting systems switched 435,000 votes from Trump to Biden. And, of course, this was credited to Chanel Rion and One American News at the time. And again, he posted that November 12th of 2020, and now he's back in office, and they're paying attention to what this is. And again, I can't emphasize this enough that Tulsi Gabbard is at the heart of what's going on right now. This is the same Tulsi Gabbard that has basically independent methods within the government of gathering intelligence. It's so broad of a position that it makes other intel oligarchs very scared. There's been movements or there have been ideas floated to try to clip the wings of Tulsi Gabbard now that there's somebody in there that doesn't necessarily, like Tulsi Gabbard, I think is safe to say, is not going to automatically assume that a briefing she gets or intel she gets that's from the CIA is fact, because they have a terrible track record of trying to deceive, right? That they believe, the same thing from the NSA and these other places. She has access to all of their intelligence, but also can do, can make her independent assessments. And so the fact that she was on the ground, there's also another angle There's a possibility that she doesn't quite trust the FBI. Not necessarily saying she doesn't trust Kash Patel, but there is already reporting about that that is out there. I believe surrounding the assassination of Charlie Kirk, as a matter of fact, one of those headlines. But the FBI is a bunch of people. It's not just one guy. There's a lot of rank and file down the line that I don't trust. So who knows? Maybe she was there to monitor the situation and report back, because you don't want any of those voting machine hard drives or ballots to go missing.
Yeah, she being there herself says something.
Yeah, it does. So
she missed a cabinet meeting today to make sure that she was there for something incredibly important.
Interesting.
Obviously.
And one last thing on this Dominion election situation is going to be this story here. So there's a guy, I don't know if you remember his name, a guy by the name of Eric Coomer. Eric Coomer is a former executive at Dominion Voting. And there's a quote that's attributed to him. This is a quote that says, "Don't worry about the election. Trump's not going to win. I made effing sure of that." This was a quote that was, I haven't heard Eric Coomer's name in a long time. But he's now he was on an Antifa conference call, by the way, when he said that. So it's not a text message. It's a Antifa conference call. Eric Coomer was exposed as saying, "Don't worry about the election. Trump's not going to win. I made effing sure of that." And this guy worked for Dominion at the time. There's a lawsuit involving Eric Coomer and, I believe, Patrick Byrne, again, former Intel guy that's been singing like a canary. Also a guy that's was, according to Emerald Robinson's reporting, instrumental in the 2024 election not being stolen. Specifically, there was the way the story goes is that there was a computer operation out of Serbia that was planning on hacking the U.S. elections, but Byrne and other actors hacked them, and the rest is history. That's the story, right? And so that's why we have now a deposition that went on earlier this week, 2 days ago, where ex-Dominion Voting Systems executive Eric Coomer admitted under oath in a deposition of the lawsuit Coomer v. Byrne to discussing voting equipment, adjudication software, and source code with foreign nationals, including Serbians, who could remotely troubleshoot in an office in Denver. This contradicts years of Dominion denial of foreign involvement in U.S. elections. It's also reported that Charlie Kane, the attorney for Eric Coomer, assaulted, and I think assault in this term is loose, although there may be a video of it, kind of shoved, pushed, maybe nudged, but maybe it was worse than that. I don't know. But when you hear the word assaulted, you take it with a grain of salt, because assault can mean, take it with a grain, no pun intended. Sorry about that.
No, that's good.
Charlie Kane, attorney for Eric Coomer.
Take assault with a grain of salt.
Assaulted Byrne's attorney, Peter Tickton, several times after losing the motion. So Coomer's attorney tried to motion to suppress questions in the deposition about Serbia, China, and Venezuela. And the judge said, no, you are going to answer these questions. So he had to answer them. And so that's the news. That's the news about all of this election stuff. And it's fascinating because this would be, if all of this is true, and I think, there's a lot of truth. I don't know if the government is ever going to come out and totally confirm what Emerald Robinson is reporting. I hope so. I think maybe there may be different. I think parts of it are going to be confirmed. I don't know if the whole story is. I don't know. I have no idea. But it's got to lead. I know it's got to lead to accountability. It's got to lead to secure elections, and it's got to lead to getting rid of electronic voting machines. Because there's just no way that I'm ever going to give them the benefit of the doubt again. I don't care.
Well, you do know that it won't come out if the Democrats win the midterms.
Correct.
And then have chair positions on all of the committees.
Oh, well, they'll try to impeach Trump over exposing the 2020 election fraud.
That's right. That's right. So we do know that. We do know that if the Democrats win the midterms, this will all go away. Mm-hmm. So I, to my point earlier about about Tulsi Gabbard being there, I hope she gets answers quickly and then gets that information out quickly.
Yeah, and it's the
truth.
I appreciate your optimism because this is the news we're covering it because it's in the. I'm just still to the point where I'm like, I don't know how these people are made to stop within the system we currently have, because Congress is not going to get rid of the filibuster, and then the judicial system. So I mean, my honest question, and maybe there's an answer, I don't know, but how are these people held accountable when you have Pam Bondi, which you can blame Pam Bondi for a lot of stuff, or you have President Trump, and maybe you can blame him for a lot of stuff. But if the judges are all corrupt like they were in 2020, I just find it very difficult to see how you get convictions inside of the current system that we have.
And in fairness, that doesn't make you a pessimist. That makes you an objective realist.
Yeah, I'm really wondering at this point, like, because I want the accountability, and I want the deep state to be charged. I want the Russian collusion. Like, I want all that, but and we deserve as Americans to expect that. I'm just wondering how it happens, because the more and more I think about it, the culture, as I talked about earlier with that Nerdrotic video, the culture seems to always be shifting ahead of the narratives of the status quo, and so you have these judges and you have everybody that they will just blatantly lie to you in your face. They'll commit an injustice in front of your face to support these, especially if they're older, to support these lies that they've already believed from 6 years ago.
Yeah.
Like, they don't want those lies to crumble. They don't want to admit that they were wrong. Yeah. There's a lot of other factors that go involved in it. And so I'm just, this narrative here that Joe Biden won in 2020, this is the hill they're willing to die on.
Is it fair for me to push back on you and say that you wanted those things too quickly during the first year of this new administration, and that, sadly, in government things take time, and we all wished and hoped for everything to be all out on the table on a silver platter with a whole host of issues, because they were talked about on the campaign trail and they were part of the mandate for what got Trump elected. But do you think that your expectations, and we've talked with you, and Rob and I have talked about this before, do we think that those perp walks and all of that evidence and all of the conspiracy theories that were probably spot on true, and all of that evidence should already be all out there by now?
I think it's totally fair. I think you make a fair point. I think it's fair criticism to say I expected it too quickly, right? I don't think it's wrong to expect it so quickly, but here's the deal. Only time will tell. Because if we get to the end of 4 years and nothing's happened, then then like Rob said the other day, like, the common man's being forgotten, and this opportunity is wasted, and it's actually going to be really, really bad for the average Republican or conservative or Christian or whatever label you want to use when they get back in power and they face no consequences for what they've done. None, zero.
Yeah.
And
technically, won't even be 4 years; it'll be 2 years.
Yeah.
If the midterms don't go
That's
the way
exactly
they should,
right. Yeah.
then I totally see what you're saying, and I've felt that yearning from you guys to we got to get this all out quickly.
I just don't feel like we have enough time. That's why I wanted year one to be more successful than it was, because I'm just like, you only got 3 years now. Trump was famous of saying you got to give the diamonds back. If you get caught stealing the diamonds, you got to give the diamonds back. And if it is somehow proven, and again, you got to have some sort of judicial system to do this, that Joe Biden and the whole thing was a fraud, you will have people talking about a third term for Trump, and they'll be making a legal case for it because of the crime of the century, the greatest crime, arguably, in the history of the republic.
And how will our society really digest that if that really comes out? That happened. How will we handle it? You and Rob and I talk all the time about tipping points and what kind of a tipping point that will be when that gets laid out on the table of what we think might have happened now with all of this manipulation. And that, well, folks, sorry, but it's now confirmed. 80 million people did not vote for Joe Biden in the 2020 election. And in fact, millions of votes were taken away from President Trump.
And then you go back between them. I mean, it's literally like a Hollywood movie.
I don't know what happens to our society if that happens.
But you really can't expose, and I know I'm trying to be, kind of jot and tittle every little crime or every large crime. But like, what laid the groundwork for the big steal, the big lie?
Yeah.
COVID.
Yeah.
Well, what was COVID?
Yeah.
I mean, let's intentionally manufacture a virus and spread it across the country, and then let's roll out an experimental vaccine. And that was later. But I mean, it was COVID that gave them the mail-in ballot. There's some dust. The mail-in ballot avenue. That was just one avenue to steal it. So, let's check in on Minnesota, shall we? For everybody that didn't have the stomach. I don't know if you've been on the show since we've been talking about what happened in Minnesota, so feel free to give me your opinion.
I have not. I've just been watching.
For everybody who didn't have the stomach for what happened, and obviously the death of Alex Preddy, I obviously wish that he wasn't dead, he wasn't shot the way he was. I think that the gun accidentally went off when he was disarmed. That models tended to do it, and I think the agents did what they thought was protecting themselves. Everybody talking about how terrible this is, and of course my take on it is and was that I knew if Trump was serious about actually deporting criminals and the left going to react, that something like this was bound to happen. I knew it was. And yet you had people pulling back, well, not this way. We can't deport them if they don't want to be deported. We can't deport them if radical leftists organize and create an insurgency on signal. We can't continue to deport them. And it's like, okay, let's just wait. Like, this guy was not some saint. What happened to him was bad. Now we have new video of him a week or so before he was shot acting like the radical subversive I assumed, without evidence, now I have evidence, he was.
Fuck you guys! Fucking trash! Fucking trash! Fuck you!
Now, it almost looks like the same video where he was shot. It also brings up this idea of, okay, did the agents that were involved in the shooting, did they already know who this guy was? Had they had encounters with him before? Then there's the other question, Eric. Had he been arrested then, might not have died, might not have been out on the streets that day.
Yeah.
And then we have another angle. Here's the main angle of him doing this, but we have it narrated by Elizabeth Warren eulogizing him.
Caring for people was at the core of who he was. He was incapable of causing harm. Alex carried patience, compassion, and calm as a steady light within him. Even at the very end, that light was there. I recognized his familiar stillness and signature calm composure. Caring for people was at the core of who he was.
So now that this video is out, and there's still going to be. There's nobody on the left or the right that's going to have their mind changed at all about what happened. There's nothing. I mean, even when the initial video came out of him being killed, there's nothing. I mean, I had my mind made up. Thought it was bad, meaning I wish it hadn't happened the way it did. But I also understand here's a guy. And now we know on the Signal app being given instructions to go out there, he wasn't just an observer. He was holding up traffic. Like, I still think the deportations should continue, even though something tragic like that happened. This is part of essentially an undeclared war. Whether you're going to have law and order or we're not going to have law and order.
The deportations have to continue because if they stop, then it will only give the radical left the ammunition to say the farther we take it and the worse things that happen, then they'll stop.
Yep.
The more radical and crazy we are and get and push them, then eventually we'll get to a point to where they'll stop.
Renee Good and Alex Preddy are victims of the left, not the right.
100%.
They are victims of the left. And, and the truth of the matter is people like Tim Walz and Jacob Frey and others and the NGOs that are funding all of this, they look at people like Alex Preddy and Renee Good as expendable. They are cannon fodder for their subversive color revolution. And that's what's going on here. This is a highly organized, and I think it's organized by the Intel community or rogue Intel agents. I mean, the United States is not monolithic. I mean, we know that, right? Like our own intelligence agencies framed the president for treason. Okay, we are not monolithic, and that's just a sad truth. You know, I wish we were. I wish once our side won, there was, total control of and that only happens when the left win. When the left wins, and when most Republicans win, there's nothing that really changes. So, anyway.
So I haven't commented on this situation at all. I haven't been on the show since this happened. I was having a conversation today with a good college friend of mine at lunch, and we had seen a post from a good friend of ours from college on Facebook that had said, if you have any side of the murder of this guy other than what I think, then go ahead and comment here below because I'm going to defriend you and I'll never speak to you again, kind of a thing. We were just kind of commenting together about like, this is where we are. To your point about how people's opinions are not going to change, I summarized my opinion at the beginning of this thing when I saw some of the comments that his parents had made. That really affected me. That his parents are quoted as saying, "We tried." In raising 4 kids of my own right now, it's like this is my worst nightmare, is that my child has become so radicalized or so to the point with something like this to where they're loading up their gun and mags to go yell and scream and trying to get in the way of these federal agents just doing their job that they're hired to do. And that was what was the saddest thing to me, was seeing the comments from the parents saying, we tried so hard to tell him not to go too far, not to do this, not to get involved like this, and to be careful. And I mean, he obviously, you could see from that video, like the guy's just crazy. And I don't wish any physical harm on him. I wish that had not happened, but it's just it's a sad part of how far the radical left and how far they're willing to go.
We're in the middle of a propaganda war. And it's just like 2020 BLM. We talked about it.
Yeah.
They roll out these stop stories, and then they get caught. I mean, this is a United States Senator Dick Durbin on the floor of the House. This is not photoshopped, using an AI photo of what happened to Alex Preddy, but it's not, because you can see that this ICE agent is missing a head. There is no head there. So this whole photo is fake. It's an AI rendition of the events that happened, trying to show that this is the guy that shot him, but yet this I don't know what staffer okayed this. But to your point, I mean, the left can't even spot its own propaganda.
No.
And it's just insane. Absolutely insane. I want to turn my attention now, before we run out of time, to Lindsey Graham. I'm extremely interested in this race in South Carolina. Rob and I talked about this the other day. Lindsey Graham is the rhino of rhinos. We all know this.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of reasons why South Carolinians shouldn't vote for Lindsey Graham. But he's being challenged by a guy by the name of Mark Lynch, who I know and I have interviewed before, and I really like him. Recently, and this is really good news for Mark Lynch, but General Michael Flynn has now endorsed Mark Lynch for the United States Senate out of South Carolina. It says Mark Lynch will put hardworking families' faith and freedom ahead of political class and special interests that have hollowed out Washington. That's Lindsey Graham. hollowed out Washington. For far too long, career politicians, Lindsey Graham, have campaigned as conservatives only to govern as globalists once in office. That's Lindsey Graham. I'll tell you how much of a globalist that Lindsey Graham is. Here's a clip of Lindsey Graham advocating. So this guy's never really had a war that he doesn't like, okay? So Lindsey Graham goes out there and advocates for wars and creates humanitarian, refugee, and immigration catastrophes, and then comes back home to the United States Senate, or he actually never leaves the comfort of the home. He says other people to go do that. Comes to the United States Senate to advocate for Afghan refugees, which I would say are jihadis and terrorists, or potential ones anyway, that we now have to clean up the mess. The American people have to deal with the consequences of Lindsey Graham's bloodlust.
We're going to get this done. This is the right thing to do. There's no other ending that is acceptable to me. The people who were there with us in the fight that are here in America need to stay. This will be their new home, so we have a moral obligation to these people. They will make great citizens over time. We're going to.
There's so much there, but that's Senator Lindsey Graham saying that because of the war that I support, we got to bring Afghanis to America, and they're going to be great citizens over time. Well, thanks to Nick Shirley and this whole Somalia expose, we now have the numbers on not only Somalians, but we have the numbers on Afghans. Remember when Donald Trump posted this over on Truth Social, where it showed, let's see, what does this show? I don't know if we can you see that on the screen there? This is percentage of immigrant households receiving welfare or assistance. And Afghanistan ranks in at 68.1% of Afghan households are on welfare. Then you can go over to this one on if you want to section out the welfare and just look at food stamps. Afghanis are at the top of the charts, 45.6% receiving food stamps. So yeah, over time they're model citizens. Well, I mean, it's 2026, and this doesn't even begin, Eric, to talk about the potential danger that this poses to Americans, bringing third worlders over, bringing people who are jihadis. You don't know who's what. And so this also just not only hurts our wallets, but it also makes America a more dangerous place to live if you are importing. It's just frustrating. You start these wars that Americans don't want, and then the consequences, we got to take these people in. I think that's America last, and I think the people of South Carolina know it.
Why was he assuming that these people were going to come over here to the U.S. and assimilate into our culture and way of living just because over there they were helping our guys to make sure to get the terrorists out of their little towns? Like, what? I don't know why he thought that they would make model citizens and assimilate to our way of living. There's no way that he actually thought that would happen.
Well, the D.C. establishment, and even this is even true right now in the midst of the deportations. They don't want deportations. They want all the immigrants. I mean, when General Flynn, who's endorsed Mark Lynch, when he says that that Mark Lynch won't govern as a globalist mentality is no borders, let everybody come here. Yeah. And we see the results of that. We see people dead like Lake and Riley. It's just insane. And so, Lindsey Graham, as I said the other day, he wants to talk tough on immigration now that it's an election year. But if he survives this again and fools the people, for the next 5 years, he's just going to be talking about the next war he wants to start, the next war he wants to send your son and daughter to when he doesn't even have any kids. I think the fact that, if you're going to vote to send people to war, you should have to have kids of your own. I don't see how you can make that decision and not be a parent yourself. I feel like that is totally immoral because I don't think you really understand what it is you're doing.
Yeah.
So pretty wild stuff.
Good point.
All right, so we're going to wrap up the show for today. We're going to be back here on Monday, and so I hope everybody stays safe. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, do all the things, whatever platform you're watching on. Eric Haynes, sir, great to have you on.
Great to be here, buddy.
I want to thank our sponsors, Red Vive Health, New Horizon Real Estate, Gateway Site and Sound, T-Guard Bail Bonds, and Sherrod Chiropractic. We appreciate all of our sponsors, and we will see you next time.